The ringing master is John Donwoody, who's been ringing for 48 years, and whose grandfather rang the original peal of 6 bells over a century ago. Jean Jeffrey is the only lady in this band, as they stand in a circle, each one able to see all the others, and in particular the sally, that's the coloured tuft at the end of the rope, from which each ringer can judge the position of the other bells as the ropes go up and down. Here then are the 8 bells of the Church of St. Philip and St. James at Holywood, ringing a message of peace and hope for all those suffering from the tragic events, both inside and outside Northern Ireland. The 8 bells of the Church of St. Philip and St. James at Holywood, which incidentally cost £370 in 1890, more than twice as much as the original peal in 1845, so inflation was not unknown in those days. And now to Scotland, where the Cathedral Church of St. Mary the Virgin in Glasgow was finished exactly 100 years ago, when the 10 bells were installed. It was designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, whose versatile mind also gave us, among other things, St. Pancras Station and the Albert Memorial. There are 7 men and 3 women in the band of ringers, captained by Michael Pink, and they include a bank clerk, a musician, and a computer programmer. Clues, perhaps, to the sort of skills a ringer needs. Anyway, this touch of Stedman Caters, which comes, of course, from the French quatre, meaning 4, will be no problem for Tom Winderham. He's been ringing for 54 years, since he was a boy of 15. In Caters, 4 pairs of bells change, with the tenor ringing last. Here, then, are the 10 bells of the Cathedral Church of St. Mary the Virgin in Glasgow. And there we leave our Scottish bells ringing out over Glasgow and go south to Suffolk. Here the tower of St. Mary's Church at Rougham near Bury St. Edmunds can be seen from a long way off across the flat countryside. It's a fine example of East Anglian building, but the bells are rung from ground level. a welcome change from the usual, somewhat exhausting climb up the tower. They make a venerable ring of 6. 3 of the newer ones date back to Charles II, and the number 4 bell, with the rather endearing name of Catherine the Rose of the World, was ringing away in 1408 when Henry IV was on the throne. The band of ringers consists of 5 men and Josephine Beaver. Between them, they've been ringing bells for 190 years. Leslie Wright began on his 13th birthday and is still going strong on number 2 bell at the age of 76. It says something for the mental and physical exercise as well as the comradeship and teamwork involved in bell ringing. In the 18th century, change ringing was considered rather frivolous, so a method such as Oxford treble bob, which we shall hear in a moment, would only be rung on a weekday, never on Sunday. The captain at Rougham is Maurice Rose, who, appropriately enough, met his wife in a belfry. When I asked him what Oxford treble bob actually meant, he gave me this lucid reply.
The treble dodges in 1-2, then moves up into 3-4 position and dodge there, then on to 5-6, and reverse itself at the back by making 2 blows in 6, coming down, dodging 5-6, 3-4, and back into 1-2.
In fact, that's quite simple.
Fairly simple, yes.
Well, I don't know whether our listeners will think it is. Of course, the thing we've got to understand is that the bells change places every time they ring. It doesn't mean they physically change places in the bell tower, but they change the order of ringing.
That's correct. Every pull of a rope does a change, which happens every 2 seconds.
Every 2 seconds?
Every 2 seconds.
I think on 6 bells, it's possible to make 720 changes, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
And on 12 bells, you can ring for 36 years and still not get through.
Yes, you can indeed, certainly.
Now, it must be an awful job learning to ring a method like this. How do you teach a new ringer?
Well, we ask them to go home with some books and study it up and then write it out if they can. We find that this helps a great deal by not only seeing what your own bell do, but what other bells do and who you dodge with, etc.
But I think the really extraordinary thing, which most people don't understand, is that you have to do this all from memory. I mean, when you're ringing the bells, you have no visual aid, do you?
We haven't at all, no visual aids.
And you have to keep this pattern, as it were, in your mind.
That's right, yes.
And is that very difficult for a newcomer?
It is to start with, but well, once they've grasped what they're doing, they're away.
Well, I'm quite sure your band today has grasped what they're doing because they're very experienced, and we can hear the bells ringing, of course, already in the background, so let's listen to them now for a few minutes more. The 6 bells of St. Mary's, Rougham, where a church has stood for 1,000 years, and Bells have rung out over the Suffolk countryside for centuries. In such a place as this, our British heritage becomes both tangible and audible. Northwest now to Poynton in Cheshire. And the further you go, the more you see. A church without a steeple and a bell hung in a tree. So says the local rhyme, because St. George's Church was built without a tower, and the only bell was hung in a nearby oak tree. Well, it now has a tower and a ring of 6 bells, with Peter Dyson as tower captain and Sidney Huff, a retired policeman, as the oldest inhabitant of the belfry. Sidney began ringing at the age of 11, before the end of the First World War, and of course before he started pounding the beat. And he's still ringing 66 years later. At the other end of the age scale, a welcome insurance for the future, are Elspeth Friend and Heather Scarrett, who are 16 and 17 respectively. Here then are the 6 bells of St. George's, Poynton. The 6 bells of St. George's Church at Poynton in Cheshire. Our final visit is to the City of London, where St. Botolph's Aldgate is rather more than just a church. The Georgian building, with galleries round 3 sides, has a simple dignity. And up the winding stairs in the whitewashed ringing room, we find an experienced band. 5 of the 8 ringers come from the famous Whitechapel Bell Foundry, where bells have been cast on the same site for over 400 years. But let us leave the ringers to ring a course of Yorkshire Major and go down to the crypt, where we find the other half of St. Botolph's work, for this is no ordinary crypt. Instead, on 5 nights a week, it becomes an evening centre, bright, clean and warm, for those without homes, without jobs, money or friends, those, in fact, for whom life has few attractions, and Christmas none at all. The customers of this Christian place, run by a small permanent staff and a team of volunteers, are almost all men, most of whom have drifted to London from other parts. The rector of St. Botolph's and director of the Crypt Centre is the Reverend Malcolm Johnson, and I asked him if it was true that the crypt sometimes had 300 visitors in one evening.
It's very depressing that we have so many people here. The numbers have grown considerably. They're nearly all men, and about half of them are completely homeless, living rough. We did a survey recently and found that 40% were under 40, which is a large number, really.
Now, what do you provide here?
Mainly, we hope, a bit of friendship and warmth. We certainly have some food and some clothing, medical facilities. There's a doctor on duty with a nurse.
Every night?
Every night, yes.
And what sort of food?
Soup and sandwiches and endless cups of tea.
So at some time in the evening you have to shut, and what happens to them then?
Well, it's terrible. We have to shut the doors at 9 o'clock, and half of them will go to a hospital probably, and the other half will be sleeping rough.
Perhaps most importantly of all, are you going to be open at Christmas?
Yes, we are, for the first time, and it's a decision that the staff and volunteers have made in view of the fact that many of our men are alone in this part of London and need somewhere to go. Last year we had a man living in the churchyard in a cardboard box for all the Christmas festival, and it made me realize that there's still a large number of people who don't go to the parties that are provided. So we'll make the place look really good. We'll put some paper chains around the crypt and a Christmas tree and some lights and some food and have some fun.
I suppose you can't provide a Christmas dinner to all these people, but you're going to do the next best thing, is that?
Well, not this year, a Christmas dinner. I'm not sure we've got the resources to do that, but we'll have everything else.
But it seems to me that the message of the bells, which we're hearing now, of course, peace, goodwill towards men, has a very practical application here.
Oh, yes, well, I hope so. It has a hollow ring, of course, to those who are homeless and lonely. Many single people are lonely. Single homeless people are acutely lonely. So we're hoping to convert the hollow ring of the bells into something a little bit more warm.
And I'm sure to all those people, and indeed to everybody else, we'd like to wish a very happy Christmas.
Indeed we would, a happy and a holy Christmas.
Christmas Bells was presented by Robert Hudson and produced by Caroline Elliott.